Welcome to another episode of the Creative Power Hour. I'm your host, Marcus Whitney, and today's guest is just incredible, Jeremy Holley.
Thank you, Marcus, for having me.
Excited to be here.
Excited to be here. We're live.
Okay,
We're live.
we are live. All right, dude. So we haven't seen each other in how long?
It's been too long.
Yeah,
it's been too long.
Yeah, but we're gonna fix that.
We're gonna fix it.
Going
We're gonna
forward.
catch up.
Going
We're gonna get all caught up here.
All right, so you've watched a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
So you know how this goes.
Yeah.
We start with the origin story.
Yeah.
Yours is incredible, but remind me, man. Refresh my memory.
Yeah. So my background, I'm from a small town in the middle of nowhere, and I always like to say, like, we're raised by the leaders that create us, and we stand on the backs of like people that came before us. And I was lucky enough in my life to have an amazing family, a lot of amazing mentors throughout my life. I grew up in a really lower middle class family. Dad was a forester. My mom was a banker. And it was one of those situations where you would have never known that I was lower middle class because we traveled all over the country. They treated me like a king. It was just, they put everything into me, and they poured everything into me. And you could tell that. So service has always been a big thing. My family served in their community. They served in their church.
For context, you said middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Where's middle of nowhere?
So Sarepta, Louisiana is where I'm from.
Yeah.
Population, maybe 300. Graduated with about 40 people.
Yeah.
No red light, stoplight, any of that stuff.
Yeah.
It was just like a stop sign town. Really, really good people. And so had a lot of context for travel and like how the world worked, but didn't have a lot of context for like anything outside of our little bubble.
Got it.
Beyond that. So I think, growing up, it was just, a great learning experience, but I always wanted something more.
Yeah,
so I think part of coming from a small town is it typically either drives contentment where you stick around and you grow up there, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Or it drives ambition, which in my case, it was like, I want more. I kind of got a glimpse through the travels of like what the world could be. And I kind of always knew what I wanted to do growing up. I always wanted to work in entertainment. I love business. I love music. My dad sang in a gospel quartet.
Okay.
So I grew up in the back of a VW van on amps and, setting up mics on Sundays, and they would go into churches and sing. And through that experience, he actually, there was a guy in his group called Trace Atkins, who eventually moved to Nashville. And that was my only connection point to the music business.
Okay.
So when I graduated high school, Dad was like, "What are you going to do?" I was like, "Well, I want to go to college, but I want to work in the music business." So he reconnected me with Trace, who introduced me to his wife at the time. And she was like, "Hey, if you want to be in the music business, call me when you pack your truck, call me when you get to Nashville, and we'll hook it up." And through that experience, was a personal assistant to them for a year. I did some internships. I went to MTSU to do the music business program my first year. But ended up getting introduced to Sarah, who
Yes.
who's now my wife, and ended up moving back home after about a year in Nashville.
Okay.
So that my first stint in Nashville was right after high school for about a brief period of a year, but it was enough to give me so much insight into how the music business operated and worked.
Yeah.
And it was just an incredible experience to be able to experience at such a young age.
Yeah.
Ended up moving back home where my girlfriend at the time was in college. I got a job at Wells Fargo.
Okay.
So it kind of derailed the music business stream for a minute,
Yeah.
and I worked in finance. My first gig at Wells Fargo was making collection calls.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, you haven't paid your bills. You got to pay your bills.
Yeah.
And that led to me meeting a group of guys, 2 or 3 other guys, in my senior year of college. We all left Wells Fargo and started a brokerage firm. And you might say, why did you start a brokerage firm? And I think this was the first play into the entrepreneurial world.
Okay. And what year was this?
This was like in 2001 or 2.
Okay.
And this it could not have been a more perfect time to be in the brokerage mortgage lending world.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
The rates,
I remember back then.
the interest rates prior to 2001 were like 9% on a home, which seems insane looking back on it now. Like we're at 4% now. But we opened the shop. We bought a bunch of particle board desks. We bought a bunch of phones. We'd go work out in the morning, have a 2-hour lunch, maybe play some golf, and then we we would literally pick up phone books and cold call out of the phone books from 4 to 7 o'clock. And if you owned a house in 2001, 2002, you were going to refinance that house.
Yes.
So the call was an easy call. It was
Right.
like, hey, I'm going to save you $2,000 a month. Are
Right.
you interested?
Right.
Of course. And then throughout that process, we went from like 7.5 to 7 to 6.5 to 6 to 5. So you would refinance the same
Again,
customer,
yeah.
4 or 5 times. So really crazy experience. And to be honest with you, I didn't really know what I was stumbling into. It's one of those opportunity meets kind of like a luck situation.
Yeah.
And, I think after a period of about a year and a half, we realized this could be so much bigger. So we ended up hiring, 10 or 12 loan officers. We built a big shop. We ended up converting that into a bank that was funding our own loans. And through that entire process, I hated the finance side of it. Like I hated playing golf. I mean, no offense to golfers out there.
I'm not a golfer, dude. I
didn't have
hate
time.
I'm not into it.
My mind
Yeah.
is not focused
Yeah.
enough to play 9 holes of golf. So, or 18 holes of golf.
Right.
However many
Right.
there are.
Right. Yeah.
And-
yeah. I mean, 9 is like I
Exactly.
guess the basic thing that people do. I can't play 3.
So, and I also hated wearing suits, obviously, and you have to do that in the banking world. So I at this point, I'd become, me and my wife got married, me and Sarah got married. And we just started talking about what we wanted, and how we wanted to achieve our dreams. And part of that was like, I think we should move back to Nashville. I think we should explore, something else. So in around 2004, 2005, I ended up selling a portion of the mortgage company to the other partners,
Okay.
Moving back to Nashville, and really just started networking and trying to figure out what was next. And that led me to a lot of opportunities in music.
Yeah. So then what happened?
Yeah. So we were here about a year, and it was one of those situations where I didn't re-engage the people that I knew before. It was just like, I want to start from scratch. I want to do it my way. I want to do it on my own.
Yep.
And, luckily I had a wife that was supportive of that. And we spent about a year, and a year to the date that we moved here, I got offered a radio coordinator position at Word Records, which was a division of Warner Brothers at the time. Mm-hmm. And I think the job paid like, I don't know, $27,000 a year. I mean, it was just something so insane compared to where I'd come from. And I remember taking the job and celebrating it. My wife was like, "Are you sure you want this job?" I was like, "I absolutely want this job. This is my in. Like, this is a rare opportunity. I'm going to give everything I got."
Yep.
And I got in and I just started hustling. Like, I mean, the job description was send promotional bricks of CDs to radio stations, try to build promotions that, help move units at that time of records on the air. And through that, we did, I started stumbling into, well, what if we did, localized PR in the market to help support the tour? And what if we started thinking about
why did that idea come up for you?
I think part of it was just, it was a time in the record business. Warner, who was the parent company, had just started. It was a really dark time because the sales were tanking, physical units were not moving, and they were trying to reinvent the business, and they were doing that through what's called 360 business, which is multiple rights business. Mm-hmm. A lot of artists would say, we hate that. Right. It's not a good thing. Yes. We're taking a bunch of rights.
Not favorable. Right.
Right. But I would say, I think Warner very early on, and a guy who I actually introduced you to, Leor Cohen, was running the company at the time. And he was just like, he was an artist guy. So he was like, if we're going to take these rights, we're going to serve these rights, and we're going to do it with excellence. Right. So if we're going to do merch, we need to be the best merch department. If we're going to do D2C, we're going to be the best D2C department.
Right.
And that was kind of all bubbling up right when I started. So it was a very entrepreneurial time to be at Warner. And it was a very entrepreneurial company. And so they kind of let the business units, do what they needed to do.
Run a business.
To serve their artists.
Yeah.
So as a part of that, like running a company before and now being in a position that, I could do that job in 2 hours, I was thinking a lot. I was like, how do we make this better? How do we rethink localized PR? How do we rethink localized touring? How do we move merch in that market? How do we collect data in that market that we can like retarget and like start talking to consumers directly? Mm-hmm. And they gave us the space to do it. And through that, built a touring department, built a digital department at the time, and this was early on. So this was like right in the heyday of MySpace, Facebook wasn't around. YouTube wasn't around. Apple was just barely around.
Yep.
So it was a very transformative time for the business.
Yep.
So from that point through the next 10 years, I got to see the entire transformation of digital, right, and be a part of that.
Yep.
And I got to see the entire transformation of 360 business and how that actually helped bridge the gap to where we are today.
Right.
Which now we're in a streaming economy and the music business is in a lot better place and booming and we're making great money. So
right.
Yeah.
But when those man, I just think that the CD was fun.
Yeah.
But man.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, hindsight, right?
Yeah.
Hindsight's 2020, but obviously those margins were not real.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that couldn't have lasted for very long.
Great for the 90s.
Right.
Great for the 90s. Yeah.
Right.
No.
So the music industry has been a testing ground, I think, for technology in a lot of ways, right?
Absolutely.
It's been sort of in many ways the first industry to get
What's
hit.
how we met.
It is exactly how we met, right?
Yeah.
It's been the first industry to really not just try technology, but I would say to be impacted in a positive or negative way, right? By technologies.
Yeah, well, technology in a lot of ways blindsided the music business.
Right.
And I think there were opportunities that it could have been course corrected many times.
Right.
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 Even going back to Napster when the record labels had the potential to jump in at that point
Right.
and really almost own that situation.
Yeah.
There was a lot of mistakes made, but I think what technology forced the record business to do is to hustle and think differently and scramble to figure out how they were going to overcompensate for the loss that they were having.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, and I even say this now because I mean, I'm dealing with stuff now that we were talking about 10, 5, 15 years ago, however long, right?
Yes.
And it's because we were first to a lot of technology plays. Technology companies naturally want celebrity to launch their product.
Sexy.
So it's an easy way to get something off the ground very quickly. And social is completely driven by music and entertainment.
Right.
Period. There's no arguing that.
That's right. That's right.
So I think, I remember meeting with Twitter in a meeting where they were pitching, we're going to text this message to 40404. And I remember literally look at them and say, this will never work. And I was so wrong.
Right.
And I was like, who knew at the time? But then Twitter became Twitter, right?
Yeah.
And it's
that's right.
But I've seen so many companies like that, but I've also seen 100 other companies that you thought were going to be successful. The graveyard's
littered with
right?
them, yeah.
And it could have been an e-commerce play, it could have been a music play, it could have been a social play, but they come and they go, right?
Yes.
Because it's hard. It's a hard space.
Yeah, I mean it's particularly hard. It's kind of timely that we're having this conversation right now because there's a conversation that's developing right now about the new monopolies, right? Which are Amazon, Facebook, Google.
Yep.
And I think the music industry was so I learned about that through Moontoast back when I was working with you guys, like we were developing technology and it was on their platform, but it wasn't just us. It was Zynga. It was a million other companies that were all innovating on that platform. And we were stupid. Like, we didn't understand. They were collecting all the data. They were deciding which of these things were going to become features, who they were going to acqui-hire, and who they were going to kick off the platform. Sure. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so now, you realize it's just an ad play. I mean, like, Facebook today looks so different than it looked when you and I were innovating on top of it, right? It doesn't look the same at all.
Yeah.
But what has been consistent has been the music, right? You know what I mean? Music is still culturally driving.
Well, and the celebrities and the artists and the talent are driving the user base, right?
That's right.
So it's like that entire ecosystem was built off the backs of talent, right?
Yeah.
So and that's the hard thing to swallow. It's like part of it's like you can be all sentimental and like defensive about it.
Yeah.
But there is some truth to the fact that those platforms exist because of the music and the talent that was put behind it.
No question. Yeah. And now they're impacting the way the entire world functions, right? And so I think one of the clearest cases of that is how politicians are now behaving, right? Politicians are acting a lot more like musicians.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In terms of like the personalities they're developing, the way that they're engaging with their public, creating videos, right? You know what I mean? Like it's very artist like. And it's just sort of that point of inflection that the music industry and social networks reached together. It was really a marriage of the two things,
for sure.
That I think is changing everything in culture right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's a lot of great things that it's doing, and there's a lot of really bad things it's doing, right? I think part of it, from a political standpoint, is not that we're going to go into politics, but it's dividing the world into two different gangs,
genres,
right? And you can only be in one gang or the other.
Right.
There's no room to be a responsible gun owner and want gun reform.
Right.
Like there's no room for that.
Yes.
And I think that's the hard part about what social's doing to the world, and the really disturbing part.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, it's definitely opened up communication lines that have never existed. The information that you're able to get on a real time basis we would have never thought of 10 years ago. And I think, for music, it's transformed the way people engage with it, and it's opened up the medium for people to be able to even understand what streaming was, which streaming's not new. Like Rhapsody existed 10 years ago.
Totally.
Right? So it's like it took that long for people to start adopting it. And I would argue that even now in the U.S. and even globally, like Middle America, in a lot of cases, still doesn't know what streaming services are or how to engage with it. So
that's right.
I think over the next 5 to 10 years, you will see a complete transformation, and that will open up a new economy, and it'll be amazing.
So you and I met when I was co-founder and CTO of a startup in the social marketing and e-commerce space, and you were SVP of marketing. And did you have something else on your title?
It was
digital
like
and marketing,
consumer marketing.
Yeah, okay. At Warner Music Group, right?
Yep.
And you had a team, and you were managing people who were managing e-commerce platforms and social platforms. I mean, I think it had become table stakes for the big labels to do it, but you were also like looking at deals, looking at doing deals, being creative in the way that you were structuring things, and thinking about it from the economics, thinking about it from the implementation, thinking about it in terms of what artist will work.
Yep.
Like, so, you know what I mean? Like every artist doesn't necessarily work with a particular social networks context.
Yep.
And
that's a risk you run when you're in a major system to just plug and play into some sort of templated format.
Right.
And that does not work.
Right.
In my opinion.
Right. And we like that's why I loved working with you, because we would have strategic conversations about, okay, who will this work for, and what's the product, and what's the hook, and what's the timing, and what's the right audience, and what's the right channel. You would think about all that stuff, and then we became friends. And then we started having brunch together with our families, and then you said, hey, I want to talk to you about something. And it was this idea that you had done what you thought you could do in the role you were in, and you saw an opportunity to do something entrepreneurial again. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to go back to that time, because that was a fun time, like those conversations we would have, and let's talk about that a little bit.
And much appreciated those conversations, because it was a very scary time, right, too, because you had been in the entrepreneurial space for 10 years or plus that, and this was something that, even though I'd done something in the past that was launching a business, it wasn't necessarily on my own, which in this case Flytevu was with a partner, Laura Huffless, who we'll talk about in a minute, but at the end of the day, it was scary. And so those conversations were very meaningful and very helpful. So thank you for all of those. I remember we were at the Well Coffee Shop, like having, late night discussions about how to do this. But going back to Warner, and ultimately, like, leadership and mentorship throughout, Warner was an incredible opportunity. Like, it gave me the platform and the voice to be able to do, my next 10 to 20 years. And there were several mentors in that ecosystem that helped set up what I'm even doing now. I think, for me, it did get to a point where, I was at the tail end of the battle with, is streaming going to work? And so over the past, I would say even 3 years is when streaming has actually taken off.
Right.
But I was still like, is this going to work phase? And that coupled with, I felt like I had done everything I could do to help service our artist and build an infrastructure to help them, but I also didn't feel equipped or resourced enough to build those businesses into something even more, right? And I think it's at a certain point, like, you know, you can't be all things to all people.
Sort of the
right?
fundamental challenge with the 360 deal, right? Was
even you can't be the best at all of these businesses,
even with Leor's leadership, right? That was great that he said, "Look, we're going to really be serious about this." And I remember working with all the different labels, and I remember feeling like Warner did take it very, very seriously. I mean, especially the e-commerce business. Like, you guys were all in on that. But yeah, I mean, there are limits, right? At the end of the day, you got to be great at A&R, and you got to put together great records. You got to sell great records if you're a record label. That's got to be the first thing you do well, right?
Absolutely, and they do that really well. I think from a business perspective, there were also, towards the end, part of the 360 business was sponsorships. So, like, how do we incorporate sponsorships into what we're doing as a revenue model? And I fundamentally did not believe that it needed to sit at the label level.
Right.
That's not to say it doesn't work at the label level. And I always like to say that there are three major groups of people in the music sponsorship game. There's big corporate agencies like DDB, Leo Burnett. Massive.
Right.
Amazing at creative.
Yep.
Amazing at media.
Yep.
But they don't necessarily have the expertise or the relationships that are needed to navigate music or entertainment. They have people that work
very
right?
so it's such a different thing.
It's such a nuance, right?
Yeah.
And it is, you can argue it a lot of different ways, but music and entertainment is a relational business. Like, there's a component of it that you have to be in the ecosystem, and you have to understand how it works and how all the different functions work together because it's complicated. The second group of people are the big music agencies, right? So where I was sitting, where my business partner Laura Huffless was sitting, who understand music fully, and they do it really well. But their position with brands is really, hey, we're going to sell you what our priority is at our window of time that is important to us, right? Not necessarily, hey, let's think about this from the brand's perspective. And then the third part is, what I would consider third-party sellers or brokers that are, working in the middle, brokering deals. They're commissioning both sides of the equation.
Right.
And look, there are great people in all three of those spaces, and there are deals that get cut in all three of those spaces.
Yep.
I would argue you could probably name those people. There are probably 50 to 100 of them in the U.S., right, that do that really well, and we work with them consistently. But we just wanted to approach something differently. So our view was, how do we think about being music people who have been in bands with artists? We know what artists want. We know what they will and they won't do. We know what's important to them. We know what they consider valuable. How do we take that expertise, but yet go work directly for a corporate brand and sit in their marketing meetings, do onboarding with all of their organizational departments, and understand fully what accounting views as a win and marketing views as a win, and events or whatever the scenario is. And how do we craft a strategy that's going to speak to that in a meaningful way, and not even start with what talent are we going to use or what platform are we going to use, but what is the strategy?
Right.
What is the story? And once you find that out, you can figure out how to connect that with somebody else.
The whole world's out there.
Right? The whole world.
Yeah.
And it's really important when you're putting a brand deal together that it's a mutual win for both parties, and the story has to connect. So both people have to be willing to tell the same story or a very similar story in order for it to be hugely effective. That's not to say that somebody's not going to go out and do the 1% tour sponsorship or whatever, and they're not going to see some sort of value from that. Maybe it's sampling, maybe it's something else.
Okay.
But if you want a holistic win for your brand, I think you have to understand those nuances.
Absolutely.
So that's why we launched the company.
That's amazing.
And thank you for encouraging me.
It was a no-brainer. Yeah, it was a no-brainer. Yeah. I mean, I remember having conversations with you, and it was really clear that you were onto a white space, and also I had the benefit of being I would call it a broker that wasn't interested in putting the deal together, but more on the technology side. A lot of things we were doing was creating technology solutions that would allow a brand and an artist to do something collaborative. We did all the stuff with ConAgra, you know what I mean, and those types of things. And so we saw a lot of those things, and we saw like a lot of the problems that were happening, in those different.
There's so many meetings that we walk into even now that the first thing out of the brand's mouth is music doesn't work for us,
right?
Or we've been there, done that, been burned,
right.
And that is a frequent conversation we're having, and that's a very frustrating conversation, knowing the power of music and entertainment. And I think that's the whole premise of Flytevu and what we launched. It's like music drives emotion, and emotion ultimately drives sales.
That's right.
And it drives everything else. It's
Period.
the ecosystem. It's the common language that you and I could sit here and talk for 3 hours just about music. Mm-hmm. No matter our backgrounds, our ethnicity, our age group, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
So I think that's the part that it's almost the problem that we're adamant about solving. It's like, no, you're wrong. It can work for you.
Right.
And we're going to show you how it can work.
Right. This is a very shallow comparison. I have a similar feeling about creating content and using social networks, right? Like where people say, "Oh, that doesn't work for me," and I'm like, "But everyone's on them all the time,
all the time
on their phone."
Right.
Like my clients aren't there. That is such bullshit. Like,
they're there.
No, they're there. I promise you, they're there.
They're there for hours a day,
all the time. While they're supposed to be working, that's where they are, right?
Exactly.
So how have you and Laura? Well, let's talk a little bit about how you and Laura decided to partner.
Yeah.
I mean, you were both. I mean, I think part of what created some real buzz was that you were both rising stars with significant, and when I say rising stars, I mean probably on a trajectory to be one day CEOs and managing partners of your respective companies, right? I mean, like you were in the highest possible position you could be in without being the boss, especially for your age. You're both young executives, and so when you both decided to leave Warner and CAA to go do this thing together, it was a big statement. I think A, the team, but B, that clearly you left for a pretty big opportunity because you could have stayed. I mean, I'm sure you both had contracts that you could have signed and continued with, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for saying that. We had really comfortable jobs. We call it we always joke we had the nice corner office with the expense account and a lot of resources and a big team. And to step out was scary, as we talked about before, just like any other entrepreneur. I mean, it's not a job. Like, you're stepping into like a lot of things that you don't know about, right?
Yep.
We didn't know anything about running an agency, right? Which is a
It's
whole
hard
other thing,
business.
right? So you know this business, you're in it.
Yeah.
But I think Laura and I had done enough deals together and worked together collaboratively through the mutual artists that we had shared to get a sense that we had a similar vision. We definitely have a similar passion, and there's a drive and ambition that drew us to each other. And I think she's one of the best like salesman strategist that you can find.
Mm-hmm.
And through partnerships that we did through ConAgra, and we broke the Guinness World Records for the Hunter Hayes Road Race for the most shows played in 24 hours.
Yeah.
There's all these campaigns that we put together that weren't just campaigns. They were saying something.
It was a
right?
movement.
It was a movement.
Yeah.
It was a story. It wasn't just a deal that got cut.
Right.
And I think that's what drew us together the most, is like, how do we go out and like shake things up and tell a story? And we've all, back to similar vision or shared vision, our vision and passion was always the normal, right? Serve our clients with excellence, do the best work we can do, hustle, grind, get it done, put our heads down. But I think there was also this element of, we want to build unparalleled experiences for consumers, right? A lot of our events that we do, and we're not just an events company, but a lot of the events we do, people walk away and that's the most amazing night of my life. Mm-hmm. Or I've never experienced anything like that. And then in the world we live in, that's powerful, right? It's meaningful when somebody can walk away and like feel something. And I think the second thing was giving back, right? We were like, we want to build a company and an ecosystem that doesn't just do this for the sake of doing it. So that's the culture we wanted to build, and that's what drew us to each other.
So when did you launch?
October of 2015. So right under 4 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Feels like 40 years now.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's
and I haven't seen you in a year, so it feels like, you know.
I know. And that, I think that creates more context for me because it was just a year before that I left Moontoast to jumpstart with Vic. So from a timing perspective, from a timing perspective, I was pretty fresh in this stage of my life myself.
Yeah.
And probably not feeling great about the Moontoast situation. But excited for you to be able to create create your own thing.
Yeah.
So October 15.
Yeah.
And how many employees do you have now?
We're right over the 20 mark, between
great.
20 and 25.
That's great.
And, we started, it was just Laura and I, and
Yep.
we had one employee when
Yep.
we launched. And I think the first year for us, and I don't know the life, I'm sure there's books about this, right?
Yeah.
It's like the life cycles of businesses. But for the first 12 months, I don't think we left I think we kept our heads down and just did the work.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
We stopped going to events.
Right.
Like we weren't hanging out.
Right.
Like it was like we were going to make this happen.
Right.
And it's not to say we still don't keep our heads down, but it's like that first year was definitely a time warp.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. But you knew how to work hard.
Yeah. I mean, well, going back to my parents, that's what they did.
Yeah.
Right? They worked hard and they provided a career path for me.
I remember y'all were getting at it, man.
We were getting at it.
long days.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think we were lucky enough and fortunate enough to launch with 2 or 3 clients that we had previously relationships with.
Always helps.
And so from day one, we stepped into a system where we were an agency, from day one. It wasn't like we were trying to figure it out. It was like, we got to do this.
Right. Got to deliver.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you're doing now, and then I want to use that as a segue to talk more broadly about what's happening in the music industry, because a lot of things are happening. I feel like a lot of things are always happening in the music industry, right? Always.
Yeah. It's the best part about it.
And I love it. I miss being involved in it, and I don't. Right?
Sure.
I think you understand that.
Yeah. You don't miss South by, as we talked about earlier.
Right.
I don't have to go spend 14 days at South by. Yeah.
I'm good on all that because it's such a relational business, right? It's like you can't not do those relational things. So it's a time and energy intensive business. That's what I found.
Yeah.
Tons of fun, going to free shows, meet people,
lots of great
all
shows.
that stuff. But man, time.
Which, by the
time
way,
and energy
do you remember
intensive.
the Janelle Monáe show we went to at South by? It was like, it had to be like 7 years ago.
Yes, and Janelle I knew who she was.
Okay.
But people didn't know who she was yet.
Not at all.
And even though I knew who she was, I didn't know she was going to pull out an electric guitar and shred like that. I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know that
she was going to bring 12 dancers on the stage.
I didn't know it was basically like Prince of the Revolution.
Yeah. Yeah.
The new wave. I didn't know that, and I just remember being like we were standing next to each other, looking at the stage,
blown away,
looking at each other, and just be like,
yeah,
what the
yeah.
fuck is
going
on
it was unbelievable.
Yeah. So it's not surprising that she's become who she's become.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So that part I miss.
Yeah.
Like seeing an artist like her before the world gets to see them in a showcase like that, and just being like, I do miss that. But anyway, so getting back to Flytevu, you guys have now won awards. You're crushing. Let's talk about what you've accomplished. Not so much the numbers, but you talked about. You didn't say that your mission, but it's like what you believe in. You believe in creating these great experiences. Mm-hmm. Like you're driven by helping these brands to understand that, not only will music work for them, it's probably the best thing that they could possibly do. Right. You know, so you've got real purpose, and a real clear reason for doing this beyond employees, money, and sort of all that
it's
stuff.
a mission for sure.
What things have you accomplished since October 2015 that you feel are real notable and that you feel that you can talk about, but that you think, all right, we're doing a good job and we should keep doing this.
Yeah, no, it is definitely a mission, and we're in a world and an economy. It's an attention economy, right? So nobody is breaking through.
No,
or let's put it this way: very few people are breaking through, right?
Yes,
and
such a dude. You're oh my god.
Yeah,
this is.
Right.
Nobody sees anything.
No.
This is my whole thing.
Yeah.
Nobody sees anything.
Yeah.
That's why you have to. This is why we have to post all the time.
Yeah.
Nobody sees anything.
Yeah. Post that. Quote it. Yeah.
Nobody sees anything.
And it's because there's so much grabbing at our attention. And look, I don't want to be, old about this, but it is very distracting.
Yes.
Right. And for a major brand who may have a personality, they may not, right? Or they're trying to figure out what their voice is. It's very difficult to break through, especially when you're as big as some of these corporations, that we're working with and that exist in the world. Like it's very difficult to actually not just focus on the distribution platform. It's like because it's so easy to get caught up in like where and like how frequent and what time and like all the things that we all talk about, right?
Right. That, by the way, don't matter. It's like if you just do the work,
right,
and you come up with great moments.
Yeah,
that's what makes you break. Anyway, I just want to say that because that shit, man, that does not.
We're gonna post at 12:01 on Snapchat and 12:02 on TikTok, and
like anyone's looking at their watch and going, oh, here's my 12:01 tweet.
Right. Exactly. But look, there is some strategy that goes behind that.
I get that.
But at the end of the day, it is really about like, what are you trying to say?
Yeah.
What do you care about?
Right.
Like, what do you want your consumers to care about? Like, and it can't just be, the Tide with bleach on, and we don't. Luckily, that's not our goal. It's the Tide with bleach on the countertop. It's like, how do you make a voice for a product like that?
Right.
And there are companies that do it really well, and there are companies that are trying to figure it out, and they're going to get there. And then there's companies that are completely clueless,
right? And
they're looking for help. I think we have found success in two really main areas. One's with challenger brands.
Okay.
And that is companies that are up against the big dogs.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
They are hustling. They're scrappy. They're fast. They make decisions. They make mistakes.
Yep.
They readjust.
Yep.
And they're not afraid.
Not afraid.
They're not afraid.
Yeah, number one characteristic of challenger brands, they're not afraid.
And they're not afraid.
Yeah.
And many of them have a voice.
Yeah.
They have a vision because they're I mean, I use the example of Bumble, who's a great client of ours.
Yeah.
You could
great challenger brand.
People would say,
yeah.
Some people would say they're a dating app. They're a mission, but they're on a mission.
No,
they're on a mission to make the world.
Especially in the era of Me Too,
they're going for it.
Yeah, it's definitely bigger than.
And
the dating app.
they're one of the leading voices in that space.
Yeah.
Companies are looking to them.
Right.
So that's an example of an area or space that we feel really strong, that we can add a lot of value. And part of that is because we came from music,
right,
which is scrappy and fast and constantly changing and constantly having to readjust. And then the other area is the complete flip side of a major brand that has a lot of equity, right, and a lot of history that is trying to reinvent themselves, right, or like put a slant or try to. They know what they want to say, they just don't know necessarily how they need to say it.
Yeah,
those are two areas that we have found a lot of success in, and we've done that on the tech challenger side. It's Bumble. On the other side, it's Cracker Barrel, right? It's in a brand that when we walked into it, they had a music program where they sold CDs in the store.
Yep.
They had become, a place where, music had become stale. They were carrying really old titles. They were making record labels do exclusives. And because we were able to partner with their internal marketing teams and said, how do we want to re-envision this? Like if we had a blank slate, what would we do? And we were like, let's release a record from Pentatonics, which this was like one of the first campaigns we did. And like Pentatonics wasn't even a band at that time. They were like YouTube stars.
Yeah.
They were just about to put out their record.
Yeah.
And this is oversimplifying the example, but through that, the point of view was a lot of people eat at Cracker Barrel, right? African Americans eat at Cracker Barrel, Latinos eat at Cracker Barrel.
So what I was about to ask you, I mean, I want you to talk about the Pentatonics thing, but I was about to ask you, because even though Cracker Barrel is really stylized, like if you live in the Southeast, and you're not like a super snobby health nut, I mean, like I care a lot about food, but I love my cheat days, and I love road trips, like. Dude, people love Cracker Barrel.
They love it.
And it doesn't match what's in that old country store. Like I just walk through there, right? I don't care about that part. But like get me to the food. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I love the fact that it's 1 out of every 5 exits, there's gonna be one. and I know what I'm gonna get.
Yeah.
I know exactly what that coffee's gonna taste like.
Yeah.
I know, like, do they know that? Do
I think
they have
do.
a sense that beyond sort of the old country store that there is a group of people?
Yeah.
And I think it's a pretty universal thing. I don't know people who don't like the crack.
Yeah, it's an absolutely loved brand.
It is.
And it's because they've created a culture of it feels like home, right? It
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
feels like you're
Yeah.
eating at home when you're in the
Yeah.
restaurant eating.
Totally.
So the connection point to music is easy for us because
Right.
it's like music is a home.
Yeah,
right? You feel like home when you're listening to a certain song. So like through the deal with Pentatonics, like we could talk about the whole thing, but
Yeah.
the gist of it was we took a risk and did something that was completely left field.
Yeah.
And it was a massive success.
Now, okay, I get the
Yep.
brand and artist
Yep.
pairing. How did you actually launch it? How, like, what was it just okay? Buy the CD in the store, or
No, the band, oddly enough, loved Cracker Barrel, just like you said.
right?
The whole band, they eat there on the road.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yep. And so that was a perception breaker of like
And so they, because they were YouTube, so they were on social.
we did
and they were,
videos. They came to the store.
Right.
We did in stores. We launched a whole series.
Right.
We paired them with Dolly Parton and won a Grammy Award for best collaboration. It's the first time a brand had ever powered a collaboration with an artist.
No kidding.
And it was connecting. That was the point. You know, that was actually a year after we did the first deal.
Yeah.
They had mentioned something to us like if we could work with anybody, it would be Dolly Parton. So we filed that away. And when we came back to doing traditional country titles, we were like, what could we do to shake this up? And we're like, let's let them recut Jolene, which is a song that had never won a Grammy Award.
So that's why I've heard the Pentatonics, Jolene.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it created beyond
Dude, you're like a boss, man.
beyond the program, it created a cultural moment.
Yeah.
It led into their performance on the CMAs, their
Yeah.
performance on The Voice. I mean, it was just like it, and Cracker Barrel was the conduit that started that conversation,
Wow.
right?
It's massive.
And they got the credit in Forbes and Adweek, you know, for putting this together. And so I think that's a great example of something that we've done that was transformative.
Okay,
And
that is a good example.
There are many others.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you all are at in many ways the forefront of the future of the industry. And I think the reason why is what you just the story you just told, right? Which is where is the money going to flow from, right? You know what I mean? And how are the platforms going to be built? And I do think that brands are going to be a massive part of the future of the industry. Sponsorships, live events, all these kinds of things. You know, when we were getting together, streaming hadn't fully played out, and so it was like what I remember us talking a lot about was the bundles, you know what I mean? So bundling merch along with you know, CDs, you know, limited edition vinyls, and you know, a digital download obviously would be like the instant grat that you would get. That was sort of like, you know, the mix of things. There's lots of different ways that people were packaging it, but that was like the mix of things that people were going after, right? And it was moving into, oh my god, we can't sell a whole album anymore because everyone's just buying individual, you know, singles, right? And so those were the things that were really hurting. Now we're pretty fully into streaming, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question.
Yeah, that's what
it's a streaming world,
Yeah.
right? But you know, all accounts that I hear, with the exception of the labels who talk about you know, physical dollars and digital dimes, that's the only part that I hear where they're saying there's still pain. But all other parties seem to be saying this thing's working.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's a combination of we've figured it out.
Yeah.
We've figured out what the new model looks like, and it's working.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, it's not just we've adjusted, but however we've adjusted is working.
Yeah.
People are, lo and behold, still spending money on music, right?
Yeah.
So where is the industry today, right? For people who are watching, who are consumers interested, maybe they want to move into the industry. Like, you're in a very, very unique seat. You know, where is the industry today, and then where do you think it's going? And you know, I've got opinions on it, but I think yours are better informed.
We should get the crystal ball out, right?
Yeah,
This is the crystal ball
That's
moment.
right.
You know, back just touching briefly on the streaming thing, I think the conversations we had was at that point the business was polarizing into a streaming economy and a very elite package consumer goods economy. So it was very, there's still something to be said about a tangible product for the avid music lover.
Sure.
But it's got to be great.
It's got to be great.
Right? I mean, it's, you know, it's a big anthology with every artwork piece that you've ever wanted. I mean, it's got to be great.
That's right.
And then there's streaming. And there's really nothing in the middle.
Right.
And even transactional digital downloads, like they're gone. Like
right.
it's going away.
Right.
So we are definitely heading to a streaming economy. I think the second big play is what's happening in the licensing sync world.
Okay.
So when you think about the amount, and I don't even know the number, but I'm sure you could pull it super easy. The amount of shows that are being created by Netflix and Amazon and Apple,
love it,
and
love
every
it. And
YouTube creator in the world,
right?
That and not to mention video games, right. So like there's a whole nother thing,
right?
So that opens up so much opportunity for major labels, independent artists,
yes,
to make money on their music, right? So I think that is one of the biggest moves that's happening right now, because the amount of content that's being created and the amount of music that's needed to make that content compelling.
So let me ask you a question about that. Does that so what you just said to me is volume of visual and interactive content that's viable, not just being created, but like is actually getting to consumers in a viable method.
Yeah.
It's a multiple. It may not be exponential, but it's definitely a significant multiple of what we had 10 years ago.
I think there's like 500 new shows a year on just like Amazon. Like it's insane.
It's not even close, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a volume need there, right?
Yeah.
But just basic economics, right? So we're talking about supply and demand.
Yep.
You know, how does that manifest in the world of the music creator? Does that then become a volume game where they have to meet the needs with more volume, and it's not so much about making that one hit, but rather be prolific? Like if you're a creator, you should be making a song a week. You know what I mean? Build catalog.
Yeah.
And sort of like how are you thinking, or do you think the supply from the industry as is going to be enough to meet the needs of
this
where
may
we're
sound
going?
like old school music. I still think hits drive the business, right?
Okay.
Hit big songs will always be the biggest bulk of the revenue, but I do believe that it opens up a world where creators who are making songs consistently, and you know the average Nashville songwriter is writing 6 or 7 songs a week, so like they're building catalog,
right? And
there are brands that are currently using stockaudio.com, right? Very generic, and there's nothing wrong with stockaudio.com, but like they're using a lot of generic tracks versus using something that's being created by your prolific writers and artists, and I think it does open up more opportunity, not only for the majors, but for the songwriter that has that catalog of 500 or 600 songs.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he wrote some Caribbean songs when he was down in the Caribbean. He's got 20 or 30 Caribbean songs, and a cruise line is looking for songs that fit that vibe.
Yeah.
And the only place they can find those is a stock scenario. And in my opinion, like that, people that are writing music consistently, to me, are writing more compelling music than somebody that's just punching a computer button and making some sort of generic robot.
Right.
I mean, there's a robot now creating music, right?
Yeah.
So I think it does open up a lot more volume. I still think the hits at the end of the day are going to get licensed across multiple formats and shows, and get reused.
Multiple shows. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So licensing and sync.
Yep. Is the second biggest
and growing
one.
and growing.
Streaming's the first one, sync's the second one, and then I think our world, where it was taboo, prior to 10, 15 years ago, for a brand and an artist to partner together, with the exception of Pepsi, who was doing Michael Jackson deals and being very innovative. I think that it's not anymore. It's expected that the artist or a talent is going to align with a brand and tell some sort of story.
Yep.
I think it's almost expected in every case. Let's figure out how to leverage both audiences
Yep.
to tell a broader story.
Yep.
Period. And we're seeing that, and if you can, the issue that one of the issues is both the brand and the artist always think they're the bigger party when they walk into the room, right? Because the brand has all the dollars, they have this, hundreds of years of history potentially,
right?
And the artist has got a massive audience, and they can speak one word, and this audience moves, right?
Yeah.
So I won't argue which one's better or bigger or whatever, because it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
What matters is, a
lot of leverage on both sides, though.
Can you leverage a story that is going to tell the and connect to the purpose that you're trying to achieve?
Yep.
Right. And is it valuable to the artist, and is it valuable to the brand? And if you can answer yes on all of those equations, it's a win-win, and there's no question it will cut through way faster than any media campaign you're going to run across any creative that you're going to put together. Mm-hmm. In my opinion.
Yeah, and this just that just gets back to the fact that you guys work on the strategy. You're not talking about who first.
Yeah,
it's first like
what do we need to accomplish?
What are we trying to get done here? Mm-hmm. What are we trying to get done here? And what's the story?
Yeah, but you do also have to on the music side, like we have to stay connected to the stories in the music. Like we have to know what's coming, when it's coming. Which are the more simple things to figure out.
Yeah.
The harder things to figure out is like, what does the artist care about? What have they wanted to do that they've never been able to do? What are their charities? What are they most passionate about?
Yeah.
What do they want for their kids? What do they want for their future? Like because when you can figure out those things, it's depth,
right?
And it connects,
yeah.
and they're going to lean in if you can connect to that. So
okay, let's take everything we just talked about, and let's snatch music out.
Okay,
and let's talk about this.
All
right, podcasting,
let's do it.
Spotify,
we're doing it right now,
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Does this go on Spotify, by the way?
It does.
Awesome.
It does.
Congrats.
Thanks. Seems real though, right?
Yeah.
Feels real this time.
Yeah.
Feels real this time.
Other than music, I exclusively listen to podcasts. Right?
Because it's the mechanism and the choice, right? I mean, it's the reason why streaming worked.
Yep.
Is why podcasting is going to work, right?
100%.
Right. It's the model.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not just asking the 3 questions that everybody else is asking.
Yeah.
You're getting more depth from the conversation. And
right.
I don't know who all you listen to, but like I'm starting to buy products now because of what I hear on podcasts. Between that and like an Instagram feed, it's like I don't.
We had a 15-minute. You had to listen to me rant 15 minutes about intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
It's because of podcasts.
Yeah. You probably heard it on Joe Rogan or something.
Yeah. Dude, yes, Joe Rogan. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I've lost 15 pounds
Yep.
this year because of Joe Rogan and Thomas DeLauer.
Yeah. Well, you hear so many fascinating people. Like I don't know the guy's name, but the guy that just walked across Antarctica, who was just on the show, right?
Right.
It's like when you listen to somebody who had done something that's just so unfathomable, like you lean in and you're like, what does this guy eat?
Right.
What's his workout?
Right.
Like, what does he do in the morning? Like,
right.
When does he get up? Like you start asking these questions because you're curious.
Yeah.
And podcasts tend to answer a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a whole. I mean, there's lots of different. We're talking about a particular type of podcast because we're a particular type of people, right?
Yep.
So I want to sort of highlight that we are talking about performance junkies.
Yep. Yeah.
I feel like we're probably in that category, right?
I'm not as extreme as a guy that's going to walk across Antarctica, but yes,
but you're listening and you're like you're looking for clues and you're trying to figure out what you can do.
Right.
You know,
what's my edge?
What's your edge, right? What's your edge? Yeah. So I'm definitely the same way, and it's like for me, I didn't answer this before because I wanted to answer it now, but you asked, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Right. Why am I doing this? And not like because I want to share stories with people. Like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, why? What is the selfish reason that I'm doing this?
Yeah.
Aside from the business reason that I told you.
Yep.
It's because I really believe that I learn best by doing, and that's how I learned how to code in the year 2000, and that. That act of like doing people's websites for free and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Created, a 14-year career in technology for me, right? From 2000 to 2014, that's what I did. You know, in the last 7 years of that was as a CTO, not even writing code, right? So I learned by doing, and that's why I bought all this stuff and I put it all together. I didn't want anyone to do it for me until I got it to a point, is because I just think this is, I just think this creating content and like just forcing myself to, because it's not easy to do, like carve out this amount of time to regularly do it and every week put out a damn newsletter, and like it's actually not that easy. It's actually draining and it's hard to do, but like it's the game, man. When, like, and I mean it. I really don't think there are going to be many businesses that are going to be successful going forward. And that includes B2B, by the way, that don't figure this out. I really don't. I think you're going to have to get this right. And I think it's totally fine to have a mailing list of only 1,000 people or only get 300 views on your video.
But if they're listening
the right
every week,
ones,
and
they're the right ones.
If they're listening,
I
think I listened to your first podcast, and my favorite part about it was the fact that you like jacked up the audio, and you're like, this guy's in speaker 1, this guy's in speaker 2, but it just goes to show you like you're in it, like you're doing it, like
I'm figuring it out.
And I think there's, a lot of people are not, right? So if props to you for pulling it all together, and this is amazing. So
so a little bit of pressure, but my business reason for doing this, and I haven't achieved that yet. I do think I can. By the way, I don't want to be coy. Here's why I'm doing this, right? I'm doing this business reason, transparent, because everyone should have I think it makes sense. Like if you want to do it for leisure, that's fine, but like it's nothing wrong with having a business reason.
Gotta have a purpose.
So I'm not doing this to get millions of downloads. I'm not doing this to build like some super big audience, although I would welcome those things if I eventually get good enough and figure out the marketing aspect to it. I'm doing this to be able to build a framework for a speaking career that I've sort of dabbled with over the last, since 2014, really, since my TEDx Nashville talk, that I've dabbled with, where I can make that my primary cash flow mechanism. Which I think will dramatically change how I get to use my time, right? You know what I'm saying? Like when it's centered around my speaking, so you know that. So you said you think I can get to that goal pretty easy.
You're there. You can do it. You can do it.
So you're gonna help me do that?
I said by the end of this podcast I was gonna sign you, and I was gonna be your agent. And we were gonna go out.
Okay, I've got an agent, but they haven't helped. They haven't made it happen yet.
They got to start hustling.
I'm saying though.
Do you need me to make a call to them or?
Dude, seriously, like I'm not even joking. I'm gonna forward this episode to them, and I'm gonna be like, "Hey, listen, I know you're busy. Just start at minute 55.
Just listen to this one little thing.
Start there, because like seriously, I know I need to like work on it, blah blah blah. But I also know like it's about network. One of the things I've always struggled with on this is I do think I need an agent, but I've always felt like which is part of why I wanted to just like put all this stuff together the way I wanted to myself, and why like I was totally okay, even though it was painful, taking 3.5 years to finish my book, because I was like, I'm not having a fucking ghostwriter write my book because they're gonna fuck it up. You know what I'm saying?
It's not you.
It's not me. I need to write it, period. And even if it's not the best written thing in the world, it's me. It's my story, right? In this way, I feel like an artist. You know what I'm saying? In this respect, this is like my whole thing about like creativity. Like this is why I'm an entrepreneur. It's like I feel like I got to do it my way. I feel like when I talk to agents, they like, and I get it. It's like it's their job, but it's why I always have felt like, man, if someone could take the paradigm of the music manager into the speaking world, oh my God, they would crush. Because like I feel like the difference between agents and a manager is like the agent is like, okay, here's how this works, here's how the industry is, here's how this is, and it's like they're not. Now that may have changed nowadays. Like I feel like the agencies are behaving a little bit more like managers. You know what I'm saying? But like there's just a missing component of like really understanding me and not just asking, okay, what are your talks? Okay, what is this? Okay, well, you know what I mean? And it just feeling super transactional. Like the only value you really provide is that you handle negotiations for me, or you handle the contract. Like, you know, and that it's more about how long you've been in business and doing this than like me and what I'm trying to get done. I'm bitching a little bit to, you know, to my universe, but like, like seriously, like that's what I have felt like is really the missing component. Is someone who was like, dude, I see you. I see what you're trying to do. You can totally do
like
that.
A&R for speakers.
Yes.
It's like
dude,
A&R for
speakers. Oh my God.
Well, and look, I don't know the speaking world, you know, fully, like, because I come from the music space.
It's pitching. It's like everything else.
Yeah.
It's pitching.
Yeah. But I do think that it's going to be required that those people exist or emerge because of what's happening with podcasts.
Because of this.
Because now there's so many micro audiences that are happening that allow people to get out and tell their story, that there's going to have to be an emergence of managers and A&R, speaker A&R type people that can help support the ecosystem.
So I'm asking you to look in your
A&R
network.
guy? Okay.
Well, sure. I think you're running a 20-person company and you're kind of busy. Although I won't turn you down, like if you wanted to really help me, but like because I'm not sure you're serious. Like seriously, if you will help me like figure out how to make that happen for me, that's my next goal. Cool. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's everything I really want to do. Yep. And I'm really ready for it.
Cool.
I'm just like super ready for it.
I'm so happy for you, man. It's
Thanks, man.
So exciting to see you and catch up. And you know, we talked a little bit earlier about how you were doing in life, and I think the thing that stands out the most to me is you've transformed how you think, right? And you're starting to take care of yourself. And like, I feel like going back to like, if I were to leave anybody with anything in this, is like when you perform at a really high level, like in any entrepreneurial situation, it's easy to go, I don't need help. I got this. I'm going to do it my way, whatever. Right. But I think entrepreneurs are the people that need help the most. And you have been that
leaders.
Yeah.
Leaders need so much help.
And to deal with things as they come versus like, whether it's medicating through the hustle or medicating through the work or medicating through whatever. That's right. You got to deal with it, and you got to have people in your life that deal with it. And you've always been one of those people. So thank you.
Love you, bro. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. Another great episode. My man, Jeremy Holley. So where can people find your company online?
Flytevu.com. I don't know if you know how to spell it, but FLYTEVU.com.
Awesome. So if you are a brand out there trying to figure out how to navigate this space, you're looking at the guy, one half of the team. Laura is the much better looking half of the team. Smarter. And she's really the reason why it's successful, but I like this guy too.
Exactly.
So definitely, look into Flytevu, and until the next time, peace.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thanks, bro.